Realtors of Reddit, what's the most bizarre reason someone decided not to buy a house? Former realtor here. Had a couple that wanted to live in a specific neighborhood and wanted a rectangular pool with a small pool house and covered patio. There were exactly 3 houses in the neighborhood that met these requirements. I spoke with all 3 owners and one said they would sell and they were generous on their pricing. Why, you ask? Did the couple decide not to buy? The house next door was yellow. I knew someone who didn't buy a house because it had too many closets. Other than that, they thought the house was perfect. After a moment of stunned silence, I suggested they buy the house and close some closet doors and just not use the closet. Found a dead body in the bathroom. Apparently a contractor working in the house decided to shoot up before he left on Friday and ODD. Nobody was in the house all weekend and he was found by Monday afternoon during the showing. When we were looking at houses in the early 2010s, we went to see what we thought was a really nice house. The listing did not show any pics of the finished basement. We toured the upstairs and were very happy. Then we went downstairs. The stucco on the walls was the hard icing kind, which had been pulled outwards into sharp points so that, if you had fallen down the stairs, you would have impaled yourself. There was a wet bar made of thousands of pieces of tacky cowboy cage that had padded faux leather, with buttons on the 3 surrounding walls. Everything was screwed nailed to the wall, including the animal heads, and was listed as included with the sale. It smelled odd. There was a giant shrine to Mary with a water feature, and a ton of plants, embedded in a divider wall. It took up the whole wall and we couldn't figure out how they had run the water supply. There was a bathroom off the wet bar. It was purple. The walls were purple. The floors were purple. All of the porcelain was purple and had Russian oligarch-style gold fittings. It matched nicely with the all-teal master bedroom and suite. After about 10 minutes of looking at this, our realtor glanced at us, said, "This is too bizarre," and suggested we leave. The house was still on the market a year later. When we were house hunting, my husband and I found a listing for a duplex unit at 69 BJ Street. Unfortunately, it wasn't the right fit for us, but I hope whoever picked it up is making the most of their raunchy new address. My family home was bought by a young man in the military and his very quirky wife. They had already ruled out dozens of houses and settled on ours because it had adequate G-flow from the front door. When they saw that the bed was directly under a window in the bedroom, the wife freaked out and said that it was sucking out our brains. Not me, but my dad did some residential and commercial back in the 70s. Lady came in and loved the house until they got to a guest bedroom that was painted yellow. She instantly switched and said, "I can't buy this house because this is yellow." My dad says, "We'll paint it any color you want." Her response drove him to do strictly commercial after that. But I'll know it was yellow once. Not a realtor, but I worked in finance at an RV dealership a few years back. I had a couple fly in from out of state to look at a brand new $400,000 unit that had specific features they were after and they put a deposit on it. I got them approved and scheduled a time for them to sign, but they backed out at the last minute because they weren't sure their cat would like it. They flew back home. Not a realtor but potential buyer, our realtor brought us to a house listed as a 3BR, 2-1/2 bath. After going through the house, we liked it a lot, until something clicked for us. There were no bathrooms to be found. We went through the house again, and upon opening a closet door in a bedroom, we found inside the tiny closet a single toilet. No lights, sink, tub, nothing. The house wasn't even a 1-bath, it was like 1 4-bath. The realtor, very seriously, told us if we knocked down the wall, ran some pipes, we could convert one of the bedrooms into the bathroom. We laughed thinking he was joking. He wasn't. My partner was a bit more superstitious than me, but not to the point where I ever thought it was odd or obnoxious. enter the downtown house we both looked at. It was small and old and quirky, which I was okay with. It had a pond in the backyard, and I love ponds. So we get to the house and go in. It is extremely segregated. There are many oddly shaped rooms and lots of doors and no hallways and no flow. We get to the kitchen and there is a very narrow and small door leading up to the attic access. I realize now that's pretty normal for old houses, but at the time, my reaction was more, oh neat, like a hidden passage. My partner, however, saw that hidden doorway and got very spooked and just bluntly and suddenly told me and the realtor, "I'm sorry, this house is a no for me, I hate it. I'll be outside." We both looked at each other like, and I followed him asking him what was wrong. He totally had the heebie-jeebies and was almost shivering and was like, "I'm not going back in there, there is something really wrong with that house." I asked him if it was okay if I finished looking at it and he said that was fine, but there was no way in hell we were buying it. The realtor and I finished the tour just fine. I didn't find anything odd about it at all. It was just a bit of a weird layout, it needed some fixing, and the house had no flow. The pond was neat. My partner never was able to articulate further on what creeped him out so bad about the house. Loved the house. It fit all our needs. We were pumped. As we were leaving, we stood in the porch to take in the neighborhood. The house directly across the street had built shelves into the windows facing the house we were viewing. The shelves were filled with old creepy dolls staring at the house we were looking at. Hundreds of dull lifeless eyes waiting for you to go to sleep so they could kill you. They were sun-faded. We noped out of there with our realtor's blessing. It was 20 years ago and it still freaks me out. Why? Just why? While not very bizarre, it's always strange to me when someone won't buy their dream home because of the address number. Honorable mention, during an open house I was hosting, someone pulled sage out of their pocket and started burning it to get Satan out of the black countertops. The story goes back to around 1960, but my parents found it so stupid they told me. A family friend and his young wife found a home they wanted to buy. The wife's mother was going to give them no down payment. They were super excited about the house and said it even had a breakfast bar, i.e. a counter with bar stools underneath, in the kitchen. The mother said no way would she ever allow her money to be spent on a house with a bar. They tried to explain it to her but ultimately could not buy the house. Just a note, House Hunters is totally fiction. They shoot after a house is purchased, and the other two are houses that happen to be for sale that match the area. I am selling an unconventional home and my realtor was approached to see if they could use my home in the show. I declined because all they would do is point out why not to buy my house. My realtor said she's had clients do this before and they're always upset as it paints a house you're trying to sell in a poor light, and you don't get any money for it. Walked into the house and noticed a crystal hanging from the ceiling. In the kitchen there were more. Kind of strange but okay. Went upstairs and all of a sudden they were 10-15 in the hallway. Then we got to the basement. Room in the back corner. Opened the door and turned on the light. Hell's bells, that is when it went to a 10. It was a dungeon. We backed out, looked at the realtor and she said it before we did, "We are never talking about this." This reminds me of UK ghosts when she had to keep turning down houses because they had ghosts in them, faced with tears of joy. I didn't buy a house once because the realtor was a dipshit. The house was perfect except for one thing. In the kitchen there was a crack in the middle of the granite. When my wife pointed it out, the realtor told us it raises the value of the home because that's unique and considered art. No other home will have that crack, and he did not say it in a joking manner. For that dumbass statement, we left and didn't buy the home. I had one experience while we were looking for a house where we were the ones that came across as weird for our reasoning to not buy it. We had found a really nice house and everything about it seemed great. I had one concern about a tree that was planted extremely close to the house, and I wanted to look into it because you don't want foundation problems. Not all trees have roots that will damage a foundation if they're planted close though, so I found out what kind of tree it was to see if it would be a problem. In the process of learning about the tree, I found out that it was a yew tree, and that the pollen of male yew trees are chemotoxic, meaning it is toxic to cancer cells. However, it has this effect by functioning in your body as if you were taking low levels of chemo drugs basically. So people end up with low-grade symptoms of chemotherapy from exposure to the pollen of this tree, and most of the time have no idea why they feel sick. So we told the real estate agent that we were interested in the house, but needed to know one thing: is the tree in front of the house, right up against the large window, male or female? She asked the owners, and they said they didn't know, but I imagine they thought that was a weird question, lol. Since they couldn't tell us, we decided not to buy the house. Spent around 2 months looking for a property with a couple. They barely qualified for what they were looking for, so each offer was a battle just to get it reviewed. Finally found a house that had a willing seller, good listing agent, and it checked all but one box. That box? The guest bathroom had a shower curtain the wife didn't like. Seriously. Not a glass door or anything permanent, but a removable curtain held up by those bars you twist into place. I even offered to buy them a $200 gift card for Home Depot or Bed Bath & Beyond to help them find something different. Nope. That curtain killed the whole thing for the wife. Needless to say, I fired them as clients immediately after that. We actually did end up buying this house, but might have passed had we paid enough attention. My husband and I live in a HCOL and extremely in-demand area and needed a larger house really badly after having our first kid. I found one that just went on the market in a neighborhood that we had previously driven through and liked. Husband had COVID, so I toured it alone and texted him to just put in an offer, so he did. We were in contention with like 10 other people the day the house went on the market, but I wrote a great letter to the current owners and we got it. Fast forward to moving in and we realized that the 2-car garage is too short to realistically park a car in. I can squeeze my Honda CR-V in, but it's nose touching wall and ass touching door. Once we realized this, we finally noticed that every single house in the neighborhood has their cars parked in the driveway. I looked at the house during the workday, so cars weren't in the driveways, and honestly, I probably wouldn't have noticed anyway, because why would anyone see cars in driveways and assume that meant that every single garage was too short to functionally store a car?